and it gives me a little flyout that shows me all the layers underneath where I just right-clicked. And there's Art Shadow 1, or Art 1 Shadow. So if I choose that, it'll jump to that layer over here in the layer stack for me. I can make sure I'm in the right place by turning on and off the eyeball. So when I made this shadow, pull it out there, it was a little bit bold. Or maybe a little uneven. You can see how it's a lot thicker on this side than it is down below. You can adjust this with your arrow keys as well. If I just kind of tap, and I've got to be in the move tool function for this to work. If I just tap the arrow keys to the side, I can just kind of tuck that shadow a little further behind, make it a little less prominent. And again, remember, you can play around with the opacity control on this one too. I've got this one at 62%. That's what it looked like before I adjusted the opacity. I just take the slider and I just kind of move it until I get the level of opacity that I want to make it a nice subtle, it'll lift off the page. Okay. All right, so let's go on to getting some glass in these doors. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is actually, it's a really straightforward, not a lot of steps process, but it will take a little bit of practice to get it to look good. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my cabinets. You can see I put some wood and a little bit of color in the background of the cabinets. I can right-click on that, and I've got my cabinet insides. So I'll choose that, and it jumps right to that layer. I'm going to want to make sure that the cabinet glass is above the insides. And actually I've got one layer for the inside, and I've got a layer here for these shelves as well. I'm going to want to make sure that the glass is above both of those layers, because they're going to be, you know, like a piece of glass would be in front of those things. So I go to the cabinet insides layer, and I'm going to I activate it because I want to make sure that the glass is put right above it. I create a new layer. Yeah, go ahead.
To get that, you said to right click on the cabinet?
To be able to find out where in my layer stack the cabinet was, because I would say I was down here working on something, and now I want to work on this. You know, I've already put my material in there, but I want to make sure I know that I'm above that layer.
Okay.
So if I right click on it, it shows me all the layers underneath where I just right clicked. And if you watch the layer stack, while I choose cabinet insides, it jumps right to that layer for you. It makes it really, I mean, when you start getting a ton of layers, it's really nice to be able to just jump and not have to go digging through the whole stack. Okay. All right, so I've made my layer above the cabinet insides layer, and I'm going to call it the glass, or I'll call it cabinet glass. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see my lines really clearly. I'm going to come back to the toolbar, grab the rectangle marquee tool again, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle. Get in there. Over there. I'm going to make sure that I'm on Add to Selection in the control bar, and I'll add one here as well. Then I'm just going to fill these with white. I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, make sure that in Contents I choose white, click OK, and it just obscures them with a full white panel, right? Okay, now I'm going to come back over to the layer stack, and with the opacity control, I'm going to start to make that white panel translucent. Now, in my model, I've got 2 different layers with 2 different colors of cabinet backs on it, because I want to show you how contrast is going to affect this effect. So I'm going to really quickly come back over here to my layer stack, and I'm going to turn on the darker version that I've got, and make sure that the glass layer I just made is above that, like so. Now, all I'm going to do is come back to the toolbar, grab the eraser tool, come up to the control bar, and kind of like we did with the darkness layer, I'm going to lower the opacity and flow of the eraser so that it takes more controlled bites. It doesn't take really radical bites out of the pixels. And again, I could resize my eraser circle with the little bracket keys that are on the keyboard right below the plus and equal sign. It's actually a pretty good size right there. And this is where it's going to take a little bit of practice. I'm going to back out a little bit, and I'm just going to click up here, hold, and just swipe across the glass. Those are kind of terrible shots. I haven't done this for a while. Do this again. Maybe I'll make it a little bigger too. So click, hold, shoot.
Way better. Thanks.
Yeah. So basically, it just kind of makes it look like you've got a little bit of light refracting off of a piece of glass. Any questions on the steps on that one? You can, yeah, go ahead.
What was the dark layer that you were talking about?
Darkest layer on the last assignment, some of you, I did a lecture on it, some used it and some didn't, but it was like covering the entire floor plan in black and then reducing the opacity and using the eraser to kind of let light come in with the contrast. Let's see, so this is essentially the same kind of thing. We just put everything in white, and we're just taking a little bit away to provide some